And welcome to the Beer Club Drink Along. I'm Luke.
I'm Matt.
I'm Sam.
This week, Joe is still on holiday.
What's he even doing?
I think he's just drinking coconuts on the beach.
Fair enough.
So I've got these two fellas in, joining me, formerly of Pacific Coast Brewing.
Rest in peace.
Rest in peace. Some wonderful beers, like the one we drank last week. The Laser, which was a fantastic APA that I know you all enjoyed. So this week we have got a Pilsner lined up.
So our winningest beer.
Winningest?
Yeah.
What's it
Yeah.
won?
It got the double at the Lagerfest in Mount Maunganui.
Oh, yeah.
Over the summer, the Rising Tide.
Yeah.
With our friends at Mount, and then it got highly commended in the New World Beer Awards. And yeah, it was one of our flagships.
Very cool. Oh, cheers, guys.
Cheers.
It wasn't the Supreme Champion at the New World Beer Awards, was it? That was
a different beer.
yeah,
Scored bloody well though.
Yeah.
Yeah. The tasting notes we got back from the judges were amazing.
What was it, 98 or 96 out of 100?
Yeah, something like that, 96.
Incredible.
Which
Incredible for a Pilsner,
Which is
yeah.
great, and I think the main thing was that it was 4%, and with all the flavour in there, judges just raved about it.
Yeah. Oh, and yeah, you can see why. I've drank a good bit of this beer, and it's just...
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, it's that combination, it's smashable, but it's really full of flavour. And yeah, that who came up with the 4% idea?
Mate, well,
As a team.
Teamwork.
Yeah.
yeah. Well, originally I had some other beers slated for 4%.
Yeah.
And we Matt just dove straight into it and said we should just expand the range.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, building that from marketing and comms and...
Yeah, 'cause I really see it as a gap in the market, sort of, and I mean with Pacific Coast going away, I think it's a gap that's opening up again, where we're seeing a lot of the beers that we love to drink sitting at that 5.5-6% range, and it's clearly possible to deliver great, flavourful hoppy beer. Well, not just hoppy beer, malty beer, all kinds of different beers at 4% and below.
Hell yeah.
And I think New Zealand as a whole has a really high average ABV on our craft beer market. And for me, sort of, if I'm driving, if I'm just wanting one beer, if I'm just having a casual session, like 5.5-6% is too much to have a couple of beers. Whereas 4%, you can easily have a few as long as you're spacing it out and still feel under control. And I feel like the whole range didn't compromise on flavour and quality to hit that 4% mark.
And it's something that's just normalised in our little craft beer bubble that is shrinking steadily as craft beer becomes... People are less interested in it, there's less variety, the market's growing a lot smaller, and we're seeing a sort of return to beer as a commodity, and people that just want to drink a beer, to accompany their social events, etc. And, as we're getting more people coming to my bar here, that, many used to be beer wankers like us three, but, now we do a pub quiz, and now we have a run club, so a lot of people come here that are normal people. And quite regularly, people look at the tap list and they're like, "Oh, 5.8%, that's high octane, isn't it?" And I'm like, I suppose it is, if you're used to, Lion Red and things. But it's like, 5.8% is just normal for a beer for us. And in fact, so yeah, normalising and having more beers that are 4%. Because this is one standard drink as well, which is cool.
Exactly, yeah. And kind of in terms of that, what I'd call beer maths as well. Like, all right, how many beers I've had? I've had 3 beers. How many standard drinks have I had? 3. Great, like that. The standard drink is built around 330 mils of 4%. Like that as a standard format. And I think there's a lot of scope to deliver more approachable beers. And as you say, craft beer is commoditizing. And I mean, I'd argue against the fact that it's shrinking. I think we're seeing a particular bubble with a contraction at the moment due to cost of living. But in a way, I'd argue that craft beer has actually kind of won. It's achieved its goal in that, especially in New Zealand, almost every bottle shop that you go into and almost every supermarket and almost every bar will have a pale ale, often a hazy, a pilsner, and often more, and in a way that it wasn't available in such a wide variety, in such a wide variety of locations, even 10 years ago,
Yeah.
at the height of when we think of craft beer as being kind of at its height. And it's becoming normal. And I think normalizing our craft beers, just like Beach Break does, it's like, this is a craft beer for normal people. And that's what I think there's some real strength to be had in that segment where, you can have beer that tastes like this, that tastes like Heatwave, our hazy, that tastes like Dunes, our XPA, which are full of flavor, diverse hoppy beers that don't feel like a compromise at a sessionable ABV that can kind of keep your drinking responsible if you're watching it for driving, if you're watching it for health, or if you're or for whatever reason. I think it's an idea that's got legs.
Well, this is a beer it's got that sort of combination. It's just so light-bodied, so crisp, dry finish, but then just a pretty huge hop profile for the beer style that it is. So, what do the malt base look like?
The malt base. Just trying to remember.
Did you use any
It's
adjuncts or
pretty basic, really.
Yeah.
Just some Gladfield Lager Light and a little bit of rice flakes in there, just to keep it quite lean and crisp, without adding too much sort of malty sweetness that can come through when you're trying to build all that body at 4%.
Yes, that rice just really keeps it light,
It
crisp,
actually
drinkable.
it actually adds a bit of protein to the beer, as well as just keeping the colour light and the flavour really light. If you eat the rice flakes, the brewing rice flakes, it tastes like rices, but then it also is really sort of saccharine sweet, and it all gets fermented out. So it's really interesting.
Yeah, it's just the yeast just converts it all into alcohol, and there's nothing left. It's
There's absolutely nothing left. There's no maltiness left. There's no riciness left. It's just like it didn't exist.
It was never there.
Yeah.
But one of the things I think is really stood out, particularly in this beer and in Heatwave, the hazy that we did, is it doesn't feel watery. It doesn't feel like it's lacking on that mid palate. It's got that palate weight to it, which really kind of helps carry the flavors. Where a lot of the time you have people trying to do low alcohol session IPAs or brute XPAs or whatever they are, in that kind of more sessionable, slightly lower for the craft beer category position, and they feel watery, or the hops are kind of spiking out over here, and it kind of feels disjointed and thin. Whereas none of the beers that you did at that 4% range have felt like that. It's got palate weight. It doesn't feel like it's missing a step by being 4% and being that kind of light and dry.
Yeah, definitely. I think some of that comes back to the water profile, as well as just how we're adding all the ingredients that we're adding into it, and the stages and times that we're adding it in, just to try and always keep an eye on that body side of things, and to keep the wateriness kind of out.
And tell me about the hops.
So this is an interesting blend. So my favourite German hop is Tettnang, and we've used that as the hot side additions from early in the process, early in the boil, I should say, up until the whirlpool, and then from the whirlpool, New Zealand hops take over with. We actually used a blend called Turkey's Pick, which has Riwaka, Motueka, and Muturiera for both a substantial whirlpool addition and a small dry hop towards the end of ferment. The yeast itself, we use Lelmon Diamond for this batch, and just a little bit of biotransformation at the end just picks up and brings that hoppiness to be juicy and not to be grassy at all. And I think that sort of adds to that, maybe not the crispness, but it adds to that body to prevent that sort of watery, dry finish.
Yeah, and you think about the German style, more hoppy pilsners. If you think about, I guess, like a fresh Bitburger or something like that would be, this is like that on steroids. It's that sort of really fused with our wonderful New Zealand hops. So it's a real good good mashup, I think.
Yeah, well, New Zealand hops are like super intense, but they're also super bitter and resinous.
Yeah.
And so using them early in the boiler on the hot side can bring along with it quite a lot of sort of those sharper flavors and bitterness. But using the German hops, which are like super soft and rounded, but also quite sort of noble and tasty, and low alpha acid, so you can add more of them. Yeah, it all sort of works together quite nicely.
Well, I think it's a big part of that crossover appeal where you've got, as well as crossing over into that mainstream sector with the ABV, kind of that trying to bring a bit more of that traditional German hop flavor profile through as well.
Yep.
And it's heightened with that late New Zealand hop edition. But I think one of the goals for us, or for me, when we were talking about this beer and what we were trying to achieve with it, was that you can get your classic green bottle lager drinker to try that and be like, oh yeah, that's quite nice. And you can get your Hophead hazy IPA, smash it and go, oh yeah, that's nice.
Oh yeah.
And just like really try to thread the needle with that crossover market, with the flavor profile as well as the ABV, and I think it really hit the mark.
Sam, if you have many homebrewers getting in touch with you, trying to ask if you want to share some of these recipes, now that the
no, I
might
haven't
not be
actually. No, good call. But no, I had a.
So Sam's personal phone number.
Yeah.
And of course, someone might buy Pacific Coast, so these things may re-emerge like a phoenix, and we may get to drink fresh Beach Break once again with the new ownership potentially.
Yeah. That would be a good result, I think, for all. It is a bit of a sad thing to think that the recipes would go away, but they're all up here as well, and who's to say Beach Break might not return in another form at another brewery, or better,
Yeah, well, constant improvement, right?
Yeah, definitely.
So, Matt, you've designed all of the Pacific Coast labels?
Yes. I think all of the ones that have gone on the cans. I think there were a couple when I started that I didn't, but from pretty early on, so all of the core range cans and all of the seasonal cans were me.
So Beach Break Vibe, are these surfboards?
They are surfboards.
Okay, yeah. Get what you did there. Yeah. Pacific Coasts, waves.
Yeah, and we were trying to.
All right, fine.
We'll clean that up later. With the Pacific Coast brand, I was trying to keep it kind of tight and cohesive around that kind of Pacific Coast theme. Like everything that I was trying to do was kind of, all right, why is that there? What's the link back to Pacific Coast? And I think having a clear brand identity, both visually and thematically, so you can. I know what that beer is, and a few little tie-ins, so kind of colour theming on your different styles. So kind of in the seasonals, I think as you touched on with Laser last week, all our clean hoppy beers were blue and based around boats. All our seasonal hazy beers were green and based around waves. So kind of trying to build some kind of brand identity and consistency there, so you know kind of at a glance what you're looking at on the shelf.
And quite a different thing to create so I suppose for a core range beer, it's creating a brand really. Yeah. Whereas a seasonal is a one-off cool thing that it's gone really quite quickly. Yeah. Whereas this is making us think a bit more long term, so different considerations, I imagine.
Yeah. Just trying to connect that, like what's its reason for being. What you can tell, like with trying to go for the color and the vibe. It's sort of it's light. It's fresh, and the whole brand was aiming sort of vaguely beachy and trying to portray that lightness through the packaging and making it something that feels premium but everyday. It's kind of a fine line to tread.
Yeah, well, absolutely delicious beer. You can see why Pilsners have been so popular through the last few hundred years.
Yeah.
Yeah, brilliant. Cheers for joining us, guys. Thanks for making fantastic beers. And excited to see where you two lads go next in your pretty impressive careers so far, the both of you. So Yeah,
Cool.
cut a little bit short at Pacific Coast. But yeah, cheers to the future.
To the future.
Cheers,
The
guys.
future.
Thanks for joining us.
And in the future, the advent calendar is coming out, so buy it. It's great.
Oh yeah, buy the Beach Advent calendar.